In this video, I want to show you how you can build stunning mobile application interfaces inside of Lovable. It's super simple, so let's take a look at that right now. So the first step to prompting beautiful interfaces inside of Lovable is by starting small. Break down bigger steps into smaller steps. So what I like to do is I like to start out by saying following. Make an iOS style mobile first app. Okay. And I'm going to highlight this by writing it in caps. Then I'm going to say use clean, minimal, and elegant light styles and round borders, round corners, and corners in Apple iOS style, right? And then I'm going to add my accent color. And you can make this blue, you can make this anything. I'm going to do use orange as an accent color, right? And then I'm going to say only build the no login screen, only build the slash app screen as a SPA. So it's already an SPA, but as an SPA, single page application with a top bar, slash app content container and menu bar in Apple style. Okay, we're going to reference this again so AI 150% gets it. Okay, and now here's the important thing. I'm going to say for responsiveness, for responsiveness, I'm going to say following. Make the main app section 100 VH. That stands for view height, meaning the entirety of the screen, but not beyond that. So you don't have any funky scrolling issues. And in that main container, add the top bar, very important, as a relative element. So it's relative, so it's not fixed and you have any funky cutoffs and all that kind of stuff. You can do it fixed, but I found that Lovable works better when you tell it to build relative stuff. Under that is the app container, also relative, but it needs to be Flexbox, so it flexes up. And we do shrink, so it shrinks if needed, and then grows, so it fills out the rest of the space, right? And lastly, under that, the menu bar in iOS style, right? The menu bar in iOS style. And then I'm going to also say relative, right? As a relative element. So as a relative element. Now we want to implement safe areas if we're using Despia. So then I'm going to say implement safe areas via safe areas on the top bar and menu bar. There you go. implement save areas on the top and menu bar. Now we need the documentation from Despia to feed this in. So we can just go to lovable.despia.com. It's super simple. And then we just go to a full screen save area here. And we can just copy this battle tested prompt so it gets us a guaranteed great result. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to now paste this here, and then under this prompt, I'm going to continue. And then the last thing I want to mention to this, let's say also for button clicks at light haptic feedback, okay? And then I'm going to add the documentation from Despia towards that. So I'm going to look for haptic feedback. Where did that go again? There you go, haptic feedback. And we can just copy this prompt here. There you go. Oh, a little bit too much. Ooh, okay, there you go. Let's copy that. And let's go back to Lovable. And we'll paste this in here. And then I think we have everything that we need. One thing I want to mention is only create one page. Do not, and then I'm going to say componentize the top bar plus menu bar. Componentize, yeah, that is a word, but my grammar dictionary doesn't know that this is a word. Componentize the top bar and menu bar. And this is another requirement. So, and then I'm going to add my last requirement. When SPA, single page application, meaning you have a web app that is all pages in one page, when SPA route, aka page, so aka route/page changes happen, make sure only the app content changes and do not remove/flash the top/or the top/menu bars, right? When do changes and then menu bars. And then I'm going to actually add the last one. When routes change, animate the text change on the top bar for the page name. That's kind of like Apple style. And then I'm also going to add to this prompt, when routes change, animate in/out the app content pages. Okay, and now this is a winning prompt. This will produce a stunning mobile application interface for us. With Lovable, this is going to just get the job done very well. This works all the time. And now if you're wondering yourself, hey, how do I build a mobile application in Lovable? Lovable is for web apps. And if I ask Lovable to build a mobile application, it suggests me to use capacitor, and then I have to go into cursor, and I have to get all codey, and I get some random file I have to open in Xcode, and I got to do code signing. And what the heck is happening here? I don't want to do that. If you don't want to do that, you want a simpler solution, the one that I'm using in this video, take a look at Despia. Despia allows you to turn your Lovable web application into a native mobile application. You're going to get access to over 30 native features, from screen shield to in-app purchases to haptic feedback to safe areas. Everybody's missing safe areas. They're quite important. And all that kind of stuff. So you get access to basically everything. You can take a look at all the features that it gives your Lovable application. And we do have dedicated documentation only for Lovable. So It's lovable first, so you know that you're never being left alone when you're building with Lovable and Despia. You get deep linking, revenue cat, push notifications, external link handling, Apple Health Kit, contact access, Siri shortcuts, biometric verification, background location, privacy compliance, full screen safe area, local push, app settings, home screen widgets, file sharing, so much more, print documents, local storage bucket, quick actions, screenshot capture, native clipboard data, so you can read the user's clipboard if that's something that interests you. So you get access to all those native features, and it's one-click publishing, so you can just one-click distribute it to the store, and we have documentations and guides for everything. So just mentioning. But there you go. Now the interface is done. So let's go into a mobile breakpoint here. And look at that. Doesn't that look nice? I think that looks nice. Look at this. So now it still has a little bit of a lovable look to it. So there are a couple of things that we want to improve here, right? So let's say the interface looks still too cookie cutter and not really high-end, minimal, clean Apple style. Research Apple's iOS UI and implement the human UI concepts as good as you can. The mastery with Lovable is getting one page to look good, because Lovable, the way it handles its styling is not based on the page. It's handling its styling in a global CSS variable, that CSS file, not variable, in a global CSS file of CSS variables. And then those CSS variables are being used when it creates components, when it's creating new pages. So what you want to do is, you can see we have one page inside of here, and we want that page to look 150% before we continue creating new pages. So right now it's still easy for it to make sure the interface looks good, because there's not too much context, too much stuff going on in our project, right? But this may change anytime, we're adding more stuff into it. So you want to make sure that you make this resource efficient. Also, the icons, lucid icons, really gives away that we are vibe coding. So I'm sad to say it, but we have to go to our friends at Ionic, which I never thought I would say, and we have to use Ionic icons. They're actually great icons, Ionic icons. They did a great job with that. Essentially, what they're giving you with Ionic icons is they give you iOS icons, like the San Francisco theme icons, but for the web. So that's because Capacitor Hybrid app, it's from the makers of Capacitor, so shout out to them. But they did this great resource for iOS style looking, unique, beautifully designed icons that you can add into your web application. Hybrid application obviously also works with Despia. So shout out to Capacitor or Ionic. But there you go. That looks nice. You see how our interface is getting more and more unique here. Now, I'm not fully a fan of the animations. They're quite intense. But I do like this direction that we're going into. This is starting to look more unique, right? So let's say make the animations more subtle and the UI a bit more clean and iOS 18/26/minimal style. Okay, iOS 26, let's just not focus on that too much, because if you tell it iOS 26 is going to add crazy liquid glass everywhere and crazy animations and AI, it just goes a little bit nuts when you tell it iOS 26, because AI essentially is blind. It doesn't know what's happening in the world. So it's trying to get the best from Reddit that it can get. And Reddit is a little bit funky about iOS 26. So if you want to be safe and you want to quote, make it look Apple, just say 18 and then you just do the changes that you find are appropriate to your app. Just a little tip here. But I do think animation's a little bit too much, just a little bit. But it's getting there. Mobile apps, design systems, it starts to inherit some of the styling, how they actually look. Now I would suggest you, let's just publish the application here. And then we should probably want to try this not in the Lovable preview to make sure it actually looks correct. We want to try it in the actual app to make sure it behaves nicely. But what we can also do, if you do not have that option available to you, you can just open this app like this. You go on Inspect Elements, right? And then you go into the device mode. This will give you a more realistic breakpoint dimension of how your application will actually feel and look on a screen, because in Lovable it may be a little bit zoomed in, and that could make it look more shitty than it actually is. Because in here it kind of like looks funky if it's so big, but then if it's like a little bit smaller, you see actually this can work. This looks nice. It looks almost like the Claude app, right? So, and I do like animations are too much, but I do like the interface, very minimalist, very clean. I do want to use Ionic icons though. And now there's an internal server error that occurred with Lovable. Interesting. Let's try reloading the page and let's see if there's something that we can do. Okay, so let's copy this prompt again here. Let's paste that, and then let's also say only use Ionic icons for the icons. Okay, this is going to be it. I do like Ionic icons, I have to admit that. All the icons on the Despia editor are Ionic icons. And some of them are huge icons, but I do prefer Ionic icons. They're nice. You can just load them from their CDN. It's free to use. Great icons, I have to say. There you go. Shouldn't say that because they're a competitor, but very nice icons. They did a great job with that. It's not using Ionic icons. It's using React icons now. I wanted to use Ionic icons. We'll see what it does. Maybe we're using React icons. Maybe now the AI is biased too. We'll see how it looks when it's done. So the icons do look a little bit different. I do like that. But the animations between the pages still not that nice. So let's say and it's particularly this app content element, the animations in the app content element are a bit funky. They have content flashing, so make it much more smooth, right? Because content flashing means when I see you see it like flashing for a little bit, and ooh, Lovable's now reloading. Oh my god. But it's still working on the request. So there you go. That's nice. Okay. So we're moving between the pages. We do have nice single page application transitions. Another thing you probably want to avoid is having A tags in here, because they just kind of like, if you're building a PWA at least, and don't make it as a hybrid app with Despia or whatever, they're not going to be great experience because people can just drag them around the screen. But yeah, I like that animations are a little bit smoother, but they still flash. Let's say just make them fade out and fade in. The new element coming in is flashing 2 times, which I do not want. Now, we're going very detailed here when it comes to design, but that is, what makes good applications, and that's how you get that beautiful native-like feeling. And then, again, when you want to try this a little bit better, how it will actually look, consider doing this in the browser preview. You see, like when I click on here, it just flashes for a moment because it updates the DOM before it starts the animation. which we want the animation and the DOM update to happen at the same time. So there's a little bit of queuing it has to do. Okay, but it still should transition. Now there is no transition between the SPA steps. Now, we may get a NPM package bundled into here that makes that job a little bit easier for us. But that should be it. We have now a very nice theme going on. Now, the beautiful thing about mastering this one page is now when I create a new page, it's so simple to match the theme, and it's so simple to build beautiful pages. So with Lovable, when you're wanting to really design beautiful stuff that looks clean and looks very nice, the secret to that is making sure that the first screen looks perfect and minimal and the way you want it, so it creates a foundation. And now when Lovable is making copies of that page for the other pages, that foundation serves as a great blueprint for creating more pages. So get this to work nice. The SPAs are still not animating the app content. They do not animate, so it's not getting it at all. So we need to select this. And I'm saying also the app content shouldn't be, I didn't do the UI properly, but we'll look into that. This is why sometimes you see how it scrolls here. Or actually may have done the UI properly. Let's click on this one here. This is the profile page. Yeah, it's this profile page. Let's try going to the parent element. The parent is this div. Let's try going to the parent element of the parent element. Yeah, it shouldn't scroll. There's some funky UI going on here. But essentially, let's say let's just say the pages are not animating. Okay, and now I'm going into chat mode. If you have a problem that you're running in with multiple times and it just does not seem to be able to fix it, go into chat mode so it reasons about the solution and how to fix it. And now we'll just wait until there's a response for us. So now we got a response from Lovable. It says, I can see the issue. The animate fade-in class is being used, but I need to check if it's properly defined in the Tailwind configuration. Keep in mind, Lovable uses global styling configuration, meaning if it uses a style class to animate stuff, but the class is not defined in the Tailwind configuration, it will not animate. Even though it thinks, hey, I'm using the classes, it's all correct, it should all nicely animate. And that's the problem. It says, perfect, I found the issue. The animate fade-in class is being used in the index TSX component, but the fade-in animation is not defined in the Tailwind configuration. That's the problem. So now it came up with a fix. So we can just implement the plan, and this will now solve the problem for us. That's how we do minimalist interfaces. And now I want to show you that how simple it is that once we nailed this one page, to replicate, to build a sign-in page, to build an onboarding page, to build all those kinds of other pages. Let's take a look at that. Let's make sure that we reload this so it refreshes everything. Now look at that. Isn't this stunning? Look at that animation. Look at just the text animation. Isn't this beautiful? And now it gets even more beautiful because there are a couple of things that we can do. We can just copy this URL here, right? And we can go into Despia, which allows us to convert our Lovable application into a native iOS and Android application. We can just paste the link for that inside of here. And then we can go on Publish App. We can say iOS or Android. Let's do Apple iOS. I do one click and I'm now publishing it to the App Store as a draft so I can test it on my phone. I can test it with my team. I can test it with my friends. And then if I like it, I can ship it to the store and reach millions of people on there. So now while that is loading, I want to show you how simple it is now to replicate pages. So now when I want to create a login page, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I build my mobile login pages. I'm not creating a login page. I'm creating an onboarding page. Let's say create a mobile onboarding page with following components. Okay, now I'm going to list it down. First, app icon. Okay, second, review slider with auto scroll / touch swipe. Okay, and then I'm going to add another thing. I'm going to say social proof used by 99K by plus 99K users. And then I'm going to add login buttons. And I'm going to say login buttons. And then I'm going to say, and I'm going to add a point A under here. I'm going to say Google login. And I'm going to do B, Apple login, right? And then I'm going to say, actually, let's not do this. The login buttons, we'll put them somewhere else. We'll go inside of here, we'll do 4, and I'm going to say get started, get started button, because you could also launch a paywall. Get started button, no functionality yet. Now, when you create those buttons, you wanted to say this shouldn't have any functionality yet, because if you just have it make the button, it's going to add some functionality to it, and then you need to remove it, and then you may end up going into other files, breaking them. So you want to be a little bit more mindful when you are talking to Lovable. And I don't know why the page is always reloading. Something's wrong with that. But there you go. Okay, let's get this back into the mobile breakpoint. Now the nice thing is you see how it's reading the app TSX file. This is this one. And you see how it's reading the index CSS file. All the effort that we now spend 30 minutes into making this one file behave perfectly, exactly the way we want it to be, and it looks stunning, it doesn't look cookie cutter AI stuff, is now going to get back into all the other files that we're creating, because now we have a solid foundation that is a perfect starting point for every other page that we may be creating here. So now it's editing the onboarding TSX file, it's going to create that page, and then we'll have it done and we'll be able to test this all nicely. So let's just make a cut and let's see how it looks once it's done. So now Lovable is done with that. So let's take a look at the onboarding page. Let's hope this looks good. And this looks beautiful. Look at that. Got my little slider here. Got my get started. This is fantastic. I like it. Now, I'm not a fan of the buttons. They're not fully centered. So let's go into here and let's do following. Let's select the area of problem, right? Let's say the left/right. Let's just say remove the left/right buttons, and that should be it actually. Just remove the left and right buttons. Now, I would not just go into the button and delete them because they are attached to functionality that may be linked to the slider. So, you want to kind of like make sure that that's all happening correctly. But it does follow our theme, which is nice. We have the app icon join thousands of users already benefiting from it. This is great. Now, there's some responsiveness improvements we may be able to do on this page. So I want to say remove the scroll bar and make sure the most outer HTML container, so I want the most outer container to always be 100%, is 100 view height, so 100% of the screen height fixed, and then in there you can scroll if you need to, but without scroll bars. Okay? Do this on all pages. Those minor things, well, I don't recommend you to prompt stuff that goes across multiple pages. This should be fine for multiple pages. Why? Because it affects a global element, and because the most outer element is going to be the same for all pages. All pages will render in that most outer element. And there's going to be like a responsiveness improvement. But now the best way, again, to preview this accurately, if you do not have a mobile device with test flight or Android beta available, or, mobile Safari, because mobile Safari is not going to give you a beautiful full screen testing experience, you can just go into the console and go into the device preview here. Now you can see, looks nice, and we just go to onboarding, right? We'll do onboarding. Okay, let's look at onboarding. No, did I? Oh, we need to publish it. I forgot to publish it. That is the problem. Now also you see the scrolling happens without a scroll bar, so it looks even nicer and more modern. Let's try reloading the page inside of here. This shouldn't go to a 404 now. This should go to the actual page. Yeah, there you go. How beautiful is the screen? Look at this. We got this nice slider. Get started. Now get started doesn't do anything. Now here's my tip for you. If you really want this to stand out natively, you want to do the get started with a val drawer. It's a beautiful JavaScript library that allows you, it's free on GitHub. It's a beautiful JavaScript library to make stunning drawers. So let's copy this repository from GitHub, and we're now going to say when the user, right, when the user clicks, be as specific as you can, when the user clicks on the get started button on the /onboarding page, please open a val nested drawer, and that drawer will have 3 buttons. Login with Google, login with Apple, let's do continue with email. Let's actually do this continue. So login and sign up are 1, and then continue with Google. Okay, we're going to do continue with Apple, continue with email, right? There you go. And then only continue with email will open the nested drawer via the val nested drawer to create a stunning 3D effect. Okay? And then I'm going to give it some links here. So let's say, read this. And then because Val doesn't have a good README, we need to look at their documentation here. So let's scrape the documentation page, read this, and this, and now I'm going to get a code example for a nested drawer. So if you go to examples here at Val, you have slide drawer, scrollable drawer, I think it's under other, right? Non-modal, non-dismissible, dynamic drawer, input, snap points. No, they had it somewhere. Nested drawers. So I want this effect. You see, this is what I'm aiming for. I want a drawer in a drawer for a nested drawer. So I can now look at the code and we can copy the code. So now I'm going to say, here is how you set up those nested drawers. Okay. Now, I'm not going to tell it in what style it should build it, again, because it already has the style sheet configuration from the initial page that we built. So now life becomes way simpler. Let's send this to Lovable. Now, this will obviously take a little bit because this is quite a little bit of an implementation to set up. So we'll be back when it's done. So now, as you can see, when I go on Get Started, we have this beautiful drawer. Now, the only problem with that drawer that I have is when I go on Continue with Email, the Continue with Email is bigger than the other drawer, not looking too nice. So I want to make sure that this is a little bit more user-friendly. So let's edit this element, or let's select this element, and I'm going to say following. I want this to be a multi-step form. It should ask me first for my email, then have a button continue, and then ask me for my password, no password, confirm needed, right? No password confirm needed. There you go. And I think that should be it. Let's send this. Now, I have no idea when Lovable is always refreshing, but there you go. Now, it's working on that. And then we want to do height calculations, because the last thing I like is when it just jumps like this. And Lovable thinks that's a nice animation. It needs to animate nice. It needs to feel smooth. It needs to be a great user experience. So in order to get that to be working, we will need to add some height calculation and some CSS transitions on elements that are adjusting its height. That's incredibly complicated to do if you're programming stuff manually, but it's incredibly easy if you're using AI, because it just does all little pieces and bits that are required for such things for you. So let's take a look at the onboarding page. It seemed like it already did what it needed to be done. So let's get started. And now you see, because of this new structure, the nested drawer actually looks decent. Like, just... let's continue. Hey, at Despia.com, we may not actually need a height calculation. Oh yeah, we need a height calculation. Back to email. Like, look how this just jumps up. Okay, let's say when I enter my email and continue, the height of the drawer just jumps up. That is very, very ugly. I need CSS height change transitions, and to make them smooth and animated, maybe even with a little bounce. No, actually, if we do bounce, we have the issue of it jumping up, but then this is going to cause 15 more problems, actually. Let's send that. So when I enter my email and continue, you see, I don't like this. You see, like this jumping? It's not nice. It should not jump. If it jumps, it should animate the jump like a something like that. So we need to make sure that this is nice. Also, the password, when I put my email in here, okay, why is the password pre-filled? I think the password is the email. We'll look into that, but it needs to have a nicer transition. So I added a smooth hide transition. I need to do a hide calculation as well, because otherwise the hide transition won't work. I think it just took me to literally, hey at Despia.com. Yeah, it's still, let's see. When I enter my email and continue, it does not animate to grow for the new content. A CSS transition won't cut it alone. We would need JS-based height calculations and set the height to have it animate. And now I'm going to go into chat so it can reason more about what would actually be, and I don't know why the heck Lovable keeps refreshing. Something's wrong with them today. But I just sent it so it can reason about how to actually solve that problem and how to get this all working. So when I enter my email and continue, it does not animate to grow for the new content. A CSS transition won't cut it alone. We would need JS-based height calculations to set the height to have it animate. There you go. So now we're just going to wait till this is all thinking. I don't think it should think too long because it's quite a simple thing. You have a div, you need to have a variable with the height. That variable then sets the height of the div, and then that div has a transition. So as the variable value changes, the height of the div adjusts, but because there is a height transition, it will animate. But for that, we can't have fit content or auto height or something. We will need to move fixed heights, and we will need to calculate the height of the content that will be in the view at a later given time, which is a little bit of a trick to do, but it should work. And now Lovable is done. Let's see what it says. Still typing. Okay, let's see what it says. So deliverable, a minimal change, source, onboarding, implement JavaScript, measured height, and class adjustment to smooth draw shrink between steps. I like that. Let's implement the plan. Okay, this will probably take a little bit. So also my camera is getting slow again. So we'll make a cut. So now I got fantastic news. Take a look at this. It's done. I go and get started. And I don't like the cutoff here, but I do hey. That's the password. No, I want to go back to email. No. And here you see hey at Despia.com, and I go on continue, and you see now how this nicely animates. Isn't that beautiful? So this is just one of the things that make your pages nicer, and like, just look at this. Isn't that nice? Now, obviously, we need to bind it to variables, bind it to the backend, get it all set up, but how nice is that? This is how you build beautiful mobile interfaces. Now, the last thing we want to fix is this issue. So let's go into edit mode. And the issue is this element, I would assume, or its parent actually, because we need to say when I select the inputs, the outline is tabbed off, and that does not look nice. Fix that. Now, this is an issue where there could be multiple reasons why. So I'm going to use chat mode. I'm going to send this into chat mode, And I don't know why Lovable is always refreshing when I send messages to it. Um, but I'm just going to send it to the chat mode so it first thinks about what it's doing a little bit more clearly, and then we're going to have the solution implemented with the plan that it created from that. So I can see overflow hidden, ref step. So it solves the problem. I think it looks like an overflow hidden problem. So it's just going to probably allow overflow visible. And now it's going to implement the plan. This will probably be less than a minute because it seems to be rather simple. So we're just going to let this load and wait, and it's going to add padding. Yeah, that can be a solution. Probably removing a little bit of padding from here, adding a little bit of padding here, and that will solve the problem. Get started. Look at that. Beautiful. And this is how you make beautiful mobile interfaces. Let's open this again. And as you can see, we can go into the mobile view, right? And we can then get this all nicely set up. Now there's something even cooler that you can do because we are obviously using Despia. We can also try this out on our native app. So you can test it out on your browser, but what's better than the browser? It would be the native device. So you can open the app inside of Despia, just like this, and take a look at this. You know, I'm now having haptic feedback on this. You sadly can't feel it, but I can now open the page here and just look how nice this looks. Isn't that cool? I got my application and it feels nice. It looks great. You have haptic feedback, all that kind of stuff. And you have it as a native mobile application that you can send to the App Store or Google Play Store or both. And there you go. You have those amazing animations now added into your application that just work and look amazing. Look at that. There you go. And that's how you build stunning interfaces for mobile-first experiences, mobile applications with Lovable and Val, and if you want, possibly even Despia. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.